You know, you think it would be easy to write down 28 things you've learned over the years, but you'd be surprised. I mean, aside from writing things like how to tie my shoe, how to brush my teeth, what food tastes good, I learned I like kimchi, I encourage you all to try this one at home. Hi, hello, I'm Rune, and today, at the time of this video coming out, I am 28 years old. I'm almost 30. I'm not ready. And to celebrate my eventual ascension into unchood, I wanted to try this old, I guess it's old. I stole this idea from Twisted Disaster, where years ago they made a video called 29 Things They Learned in 29 Years because they were about to turn 30 and they were just reflecting on all of the life lessons that they had accumulated over the years. And I thought, well, I ain't turning 29 yet, so I might as well just do it now. Now, I had, if you can hear, my notes. I had tried to write them all down in like a good numerical order and have them all tie into each other to like keep sort of like a running commentary going, but yeah, so if I forget to say what number of the thing I learned and because it just flowed naturally in the conversation, that's why. So there's not 28 things on this list. There's nowhere near that. Anyway, but we shall start off strong with number 1. The number 1 thing I learned in 28 years of living the hard way is some of the old sayings are true. Now, I had made a video in the past talking about how some of the old advice that you hear all the time is actually true, no matter how annoying it is. And I made that video, what, like two years ago, and it still holds true to this day. Some of the old sayings are correct, like take a break, just do it, fake it till you make it. No, actually true. Believe it or not. On the flip side, number 2, some of the old sayings are wrong or deliberately misquoted. Now, what do I mean by that? Some old sayings you might recognize are, and I'm rattling these off at the top of my head, like the customer is always right. The real phrase is the customer is always right in terms of taste. That phrase was specifically about fashion, not about retail. Same with Jack of all trades, master of none. The real full saying is Jack of all trades, master of none, still better than the master of one. So it's better to be a little bit good at many things than just good at one thing. That's what that real phrase is talking about. Here's a heavy hitter. You ever hear the phrase, mimicry is the highest compliment or something like that? Or it was imitation. Imitation is the highest compliment. Well, the real full quote is, imitation is the highest compliment mediocrity can pay to greatness. Another heavy hitter you might know of, blood is thicker than water. Most people would use that to say you need to be loyal to your family even if they're toxic. Nay, nay, nay. The real quote is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. That's what the original phrase is. And what it means is that your promises and your pacts with your peers are stronger than just familial bonds. Which, if you ask any teenager that prefers to hang out with their friends more than their family, you'll know, they'll say, that is true. Speaking of original quotes, number 3 thing I learned is to always look for primary sources and peer-reviewed papers. I mean, the only thing I wrote for number 3 is primary sources and peer-reviewed papers. I think when I was scripting this, and I was just writing the things down, I had like a full running dialogue going on in my head while I was writing it, but of course I didn't have the brains to just hit record and just record it while I was writing it. I might try that next time. I might try recording a video while I'm scripting it, because then maybe I'll come up with some better ideas. Or it'll be the worst video in existence. But anyway, we're talking about primary sources. This mostly came up because I've been recently watching a bunch of archaeology videos, specifically Mini Minuteman. Check out his channel, it's really good. And he talks about finding peer-reviewed papers. And that means not just that it was published by a scientist, but that other scientists in that field also looked at the research, looked at the paper, did their own research, and came to either the same conclusion or a different conclusion. And that is what you should be looking for, not some random Joe Schmo who heard it from a Twitter thread who talked about it on a podcast that was clipped on TikTok. That is not a primary source. That is the worst game of telephone you can ever get misinformed by. Primary sources. I guess I was in a bit of a mood when I wrote this list, because the next thing I wrote was, no matter the evidence, some people never change. Oh my god. I hate that that's something I had to learn the hard way. And I'm almost... I'm 2 years away from 30, and I'm still grappling with that fact, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what do you mean I can show you 50 pieces of evidence of X being Y, but then you'll look at that, look me dead in the eyes and say, "Nah, I still think it's W." It's like, what? Who's... What do you... Some people just stay willfully ignorant. And if you want to keep any hair still on your head, you kind of have to accept that fact. That doesn't make it right, which is the next thing I wrote. Just because it's true doesn't make it right. Now, I think when I wrote that one specifically, I was thinking of, it is true that pollution is a big problem, but that doesn't mean we just need to take it lying down. You know, just because it is true that the planet is slowly dying, that doesn't make it right. Same with the some people never change. Like, despite the evidence, some people never change. Just because that is a true fact, that doesn't make it right. And when coming to terms with that, that just means it's kind of on you to be the better person. And I know that is like a huge responsibility, and it is such a burden, especially when we live in a society that is specifically engineered to make it inconvenient to be a good person. Like, that's probably not true, but it certainly does feel like it. Why is recycling so goddamn inconvenient? What do you mean the closest recycling center in my area doesn't take plastic? Where am I supposed to take all this plastic? Oh no, I have to go to the recycling center across the state that is only open once every month. It's like, what do you mean? Please, just take my recycling. Or here's an idea, stop putting things in plastic. Oh, this video is going to be like 3 hours long just because of side tangents and me getting started off on other things. I didn't even have recycling written down here. I just went off on that. Where am I? Number 6. Oof. Now, this one... This next 5 pieces or things I've learned are also things that I am still learning. And am still on the path to self-improvement. And that is feeling left behind or not having everything figured out is a normal part of life. And it is so easy to feel like you're falling behind because you're not living the life that was sold to you in high school. Because, like, when I was in high school, The life that was sold to you was you graduate high school, you go to college, you get a 4-year degree, you can immediately then buy a house, get a high-paying job, make a good salary, get married, have kids, have 2 cars, go on vacations, drink wine with the girls every Saturday, and, that was the life that was sold to me. And because I'm not living that life, I feel like I haven't gotten everything figured out. Well, here's the thing I learned. Having everything figured out in your life is a fucking lie. No one has their life figured out, no matter how put together they look. They are always internally screaming, feeling like they're still not being good enough. So why bother chasing that unattainable goal of having everything figured out? Because I bet you, I bet all of my earthly possessions and my cat that there were Neanderthals in caves worrying about feeling left behind by society and not having everything figured out in life. I guarantee it. Even though they were probably living a slightly better. No, that's a side tangent. Let's not get into it. The true goal in life is to be happy and healthy. Now, that leads into the next point, number 7. Happy does not necessarily equal healthy, and vice versa. Yes, eating pizza every night would make me happy, but it's not necessarily healthy. And when you're unhealthy, you're unhappy. On the flip side, if you were trying so hard to be healthy, eating the high protein food and getting all your supplements in and counting your calories and making sure you're getting a balanced diet, you're gonna be miserable. You're gonna be fucking miserable. So you need to find a balance. If you find a balance of happy and healthy, no matter what it looks like, that is the key to a great life. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have the great life or the good life. And the next thing I wrote here, dreams good. It's good to dream big about your life. I mean, it's good to have lofty goals. It's good to, think of, the future and what you want out of your life. But life is mostly mundane. And that is okay. Like the man Tolkien said, it is no bad thing to celebrate a simple life. As much as I would love to be a big shot writer and have multi-comics going on, have movies out in theaters and whatnot, and just own my own entertainment, animation, and company and studio. As much as I would love to have all of that, probably not gonna happen within my lifetime. And my life is probably mostly going to be boring. It's just going to be boring work that I do by myself. And that's okay. You gotta have the boring Sundays in order to have the fun Fridays? Mondays aren't really fun for anybody. But you have a fun Friday so you can have a boring Saturday. Or Sunday, whatever. Yeah. Number 9, the next thing I wrote. Ambition, tempered with realism, will lead to real progress. And what does this mean? I, surprisingly, am an ambitious person. I have lofty dreams and big goals, and I have all of this energy and drive and ambition just boiling inside of me. But when faced with the reality of the situation, I forget. I unfortunately forget that I am made of flesh, and my flesh has limits, and my mind also has limits. So with the realism of life, I can temper my ambitions and then set realistic goals that lead to real progress. That doesn't mean give up on your dreams, or give up your ambitions. The other thing I learned is be passionate about anything. Anything you want. within reason, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you're being an asshole, you know, okay, like, still be a good person. Um, just as long as you're passionate about something in life, and it just, like, makes you, like, excited, and that you, like, want to get out of bed every day. Even, you know, even though I'm passionate about my art, there are some days I don't want to get out of bed. But when I do get out of bed and start dwelling or delving into my passion, I feel rejuvenated. And it's what's driving me forward. It's what gets me out of bed every morning. So be passionate about anything, the rest will follow. Yeah, I really was in a mood when I was scripting this video. I had like a whole 4 things, or like 5 things that was all about how to live your life wholly and happily. So we're gonna switch gears only slightly. When it comes to going back to the having everything figured out, the best way to figure things out is to admit you know nothing. Like Socrates once said, the knowledge that you know nothing is the path to true wisdom, or something like that. So, you know, I'm paraphrasing, of course. And but you know, it's funny if you read the commentaries that Socrates would have with any other philosophers or his students, he would always start with saying, "I know nothing. Teach me." And then he would ask questions. And when you admitting you know nothing is not saying, "Oh, I'm a dummy." It says, "I am baby. I know nothing." No, it's just not having any preconceived notions or assumptions that you know more than you think you do about any given topic. Because when you think you know more than you actually do, that is when you hit the realization that you don't know as much as you thought you did, and that can lead you down a kind of depressing and discouraged path. So if you just start off the path saying, "I know nothing, teach me," you're less likely to hit that bump or that roadblock in the road. Additionally, another thing I learned, ask questions. When you admit you know nothing, teach me, always ask questions. I know, like, in school, there are some times where, like, the teacher would say, "All right, now, everyone, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question." And then you raise your hand and ask a question, and they're like, "What? Weren't you paying attention? Why don't you know this?" And you're like, "Okay, well, fuck me, I guess." I mean, I remember what it was like being in school and how scary it was to ask a question because it, you know, made you look like you didn't actually know as much as you thought everyone else did. But I guarantee you, except maybe one other person in the class who's a try-hard nerd, I say with love, they're all probably just as confused as you are. Let's be honest. Oh, this isn't a two-parter. Always be sure to ask questions. However, keep in mind, asking questions does not equal question everything. There's a huge difference between the two. Asking questions means you are seeking knowledge, you are seeking the truth, understanding, enlightenment. Question everything kind of leads you down the path of just denying the evidence of your eyes, because then you just question. If you have to question everything, that means you're like, "Oh, the experts are all wrong," or "everyone is lying to you," or "they don't want you to know about this." You know, you can tell I was really deep into the a pseudo-archaeology rabbit hole when writing this script, and oh my god, it just pseudo-archaeology, that I didn't realize that was one of my biggest my biggest irks. Not an ick, because it genuinely makes me mad. Ask questions, but don't go down the question everything route, because then you just kind of turn into a self-important asshole, and nobody wants that, and I don't want that for you, because I love you, boo. Was that parasocial? Anyway, moving on. Okay, number 13 thing I've learned, and this is also something I am still learning myself. You make who you are. And yes, there are circumstances that can affect you very negatively. I mean, I'm not denying the fact that how you're raised and traumatic things that happen to you do change. They do alter your life and like change your brain chemistry a little bit, because that's what trauma is brain chemistry. But at your core, you still make the choice to behave, to react, to overreact, to underreact, to pull your punches, to hold back, to not say something that would be hurtful, to say something that would be hurtful just to be hurtful. That is still your choice. And yes, if you do something and you slip up and you're like, that was the heat of the moment, it is still your choice to step back and say, I apologize, that was too much, that was too far. But you still made that choice. You make who you are. Or, in much more nostalgic words, you are who you choose to be. You choose. Now, this next one I wrote kind of ties into the what I wrote earlier about being happy and healthy and living your great life. No matter how good your life is, or no matter how happy you are with your life, so that you're healthy, you're passionate, you're pursuing your goals, you're tempering your ambition with realism, but you're still allowing yourself to be whimsy. Say you're living your best life. Someone will still be disappointed in you or bitter. Now, there's a big difference between disappointment and bitterness. I think they're kind of like the opposite, but still, even if you're living your best life, someone will still have something to say about it. And that's kind of just their problem. Like my dad always says, if someone has a problem with you, that's their problem. And honestly, what person wouldn't want you to have or live your best life? So if they see you being happy and they're upset with that, they're not the kind of people you need to be wasting your time on. Or at least wasting your worry on that. Now that's if you're living your good life. If people are disappointed in you because you're not living your best life, by your definition, if you're not living your having the best life by their definition, that's their definition for their good life. And then again, that's none of your business. As long as you're happy and healthy, you're doing good. It doesn't matter if people are disappointed in you. Even if they're your parents. That's a hard one to learn, dealing with parental disappointment. Now, unless you're some kind of, like, mouth-breathing hermit shut-in that lives in your parents' basement and plays video games all day, I mean, come on, man. You might as well as live stream it. That's what I do. That's right, baby! 30 minutes into this video, shameless plug. I stream every Friday here on YouTube, and I also stream evenings on Twitch. I don't have a set schedule yet, but if you go to my Twitch, hit the follow button and make sure you're notified for every new live stream and new upload. There's nothing shameful about a shameless plug. As cringe as it is to be the YouTuber that's like, if you've enjoyed the video so far, be sure to hit the like button and be sure to subscribe and comment what you think down below. But absolutely, please do subscribe. I want to hit 500 subscribers by before the end of this year. I mean, I would love to have this channel and my Twitch be monetized. Come on, baby. I'm almost there. I'm almost there. People down here think I'm crazy, but I don't care. Trials and tribulations, you know I've had my share. But there ain't nothing gonna stop me now, 'cause I'm almost there. Stay focused, Rune. Oh my god. Shameless plug to streaming. Oh, yeah. Speaking of streaming, one thing I learned, and this is just some like practical advice if you're a new and up-and-coming streamer, and every streamer has that awkward moment at first where there's not a whole lot of people in the chat and you don't know what to talk about and you don't want to just sit there in silence. And, I'm an art streamer, so I'm not like playing video games or doing anything like that. So with video games, it seems like you have a little bit more to talk about. But like if you want to be like me and stream your art, one thing that will help you if, for like keeping the conversation going, so and to get people interested is, I shit you not, narrate what you're doing. Now, I don't mean, like narrating yourself and, narrating every move you make like you're the Grim Avenger from Zero to Hero. Bonus points if you understand that reference. But, I mean, like, just practice talking to yourself about what you're doing. So then when people just, like, randomly scroll through, and tune in just randomly, and they hear you talking, and, like, hear any conversation, and they're like, oh, this looks interesting, they'll stay. Or at the very least, you got their attention momentarily before they left. And even then, that's still some sort of retention. But I understand, having to talk the whole stream does get rather exhausting, and I'm still working on this myself, but the next thing I wrote down was keeping the energy is the hardest part. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to do with streaming. That's just, in life in general, keeping the energy is the hardest part. Everything else you can, read, a tutorial for, you can look it up, you can just make it up as you go along, but keeping that energy is, yeah, I still struggle with this one. Even though I've learned it, you still struggle with it because learning is not a one and done thing. You always relearn. Next thing I wrote on this list, and it ties directly into keeping the energy, always remember to replenish yourself. Now, when a lot of people usually give advice, typically some pretty good advice about, taking a break and stepping away from everything and getting some rest, I am one of those people that do not feel restful with the typical rest that other people do. So it's not just stopping and not doing anything, it is doing something else that replenishes your energy that you can come back again and maybe maintain that energy for a little bit longer. As long as you actively replenish yourself before you run out of gas and just running on fumes. And what that looks like for other people, I have no idea. I guess one bit of advice about how to replenish yourself is try an activity or just a thing that has no risk of, turning out badly, or that has no end product, that it's just something low risk and even low reward. It doesn't have to be, something completely pointless. Like one part of replenishing yourself is just reading. Just taking a break from everything and just reading. Because you're technically still doing something. You're reading. You are processing information. You are internalizing information. Depending on what you're reading. Even if it's just like a little comic book. But there's no risk of doing it badly, There's no outcome that you can look back on and feel ashamed of for not accomplishing something. And I think that might be the biggest reason why people feel burnt out a lot, is because we've been taught that we always need to be accomplishing something. There's always some goal to be obtained, always something else that you don't currently have is the goal. Well, the thing about that, English language, we have a word for that, and that's called envy. Wanting something you don't have or can't have. At least that's my understanding of envy. not the same as jealousy, because that is wanting something that someone else has for yourself. At least that's just my understanding of it. It's not just greed, because greed is just wanting more, which is also a part of it. You want more, or want more of something you don't have. You just, because it's never enough. No matter what you do, it's never enough. But then you just have to stop and say, no, it is enough. I've done enough. I've filled that endless void enough. You're done. I'm done. I am enough. That is not nearly 28 things. But this recording is already 40 minutes long. It's probably a lot shorter than that once I shave it down. It's probably gonna once I shave it down, I know it's gonna be only about like 20 minutes of usable audio. Because I'm a spacer, and when I can't think of anything to say, I just go nonverbal and just stare off into space, because brain buffer. Oh my god, brain go burr. Yeah, but you know what? This is a perfect learning opportunity. Yeah, because earlier I said I might as well just try and script things while record things while I'm scripting it. So let me get a pen, and yep, here's a pen, and then we will come up with things on the fly. We got like 8, 9 more things to write. No, that's not 28. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20, whatever. Well, we'll just write things until I run out of room on the paper. I guess this next thing I could write down is, this would be great to have for like the last point as like a wrap up for a video, but I guess I could write it down. Knowing or having all this knowledge. Let's see, having knowledge. How do you spell knowledge? Know. NEDGE. Knowledge. Known edge. Knowledge is the known edge. Editing rune here. I know I spelled knowledge wrong, okay? You don't have to tell me in the comments. Having knowledge is only half of it. You have to live it. This is something I am still struggling with, because I have all this, information buzzing around in my brain. I have plenty of advice videos on this channel. Hell, this is kind of, in a way, an advice video. Another one for the algorithm. But that is only, not even half. I don't think it's even half of the, the battle? The half of life? Let's just say, having knowledge and obtaining it is barely half of it. Because then you have to live it. And then that is true wisdom that you have actually obtained. Because just having knowledge and having wisdom are also completely different. Knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. I mean, just look at the definitions. And there's also a slight difference between living something and embodying it. But for the life of me, I can't think of a definitive reason off the top of my head. What is the difference between living something and embodying it? You know what? We're at that point in the video where barely, my video retention is down to like 2%. If you've reached this far, tell me in the comments, what do you think the difference is of living or embodying the knowledge you've obtained or the lessons that you've learned? What's the difference between living it and embodying it? Let's have a philosophical chat in the comments down below. And here's another thing I can write down. Attention, while thinking about that, attention / time is our most valuable resource. Oh my god, I can't. Most valuable resource. Not only is it the most valuable to obtain from someone, it is also the most valuable resource you can give someone. Your attention and time, because time is something we will never get back. Once that time is gone, gone forever. And now you have to live with the idea that you've spent how long scrolling through random TikToks, getting mad, learning about, all this political unrest, doom scrolling, and you're giving it your attention, so thus it's taking up space in your brain. And if you don't want that kind of infection in your brain, don't give it your attention. Don't give it your time. Put those things towards something that you do want to embody, I guess. This one isn't really like a lesson learned, but it's really just like a full realization that doom scrolling is literally the worst thing you can do. I mean, tying directly into the time and attention thing, because doom scrolling, in the way I understand, is when you're just swiping through your TikTok feed or your YouTube Shorts feed, or just through posts and whatnot, not actually reading or engaging, just scrolling. Maybe you'll and leave a like, or you'll check the comments or something. That is doom scrolling to me, and that is the worst thing you can do, because when you feel the need to doom scroll, that's your brain being bored or needing some sort of real stimuli. And just because you're watching things on a screen, that it doesn't mean you're getting stimulated. Real mental stimuli is sitting with yourself in the quiet moments of the in-between. Now that sounds highly philosophical and spiritual, and I didn't mean for it to come out that way, but it's literally the silence or the quiet in between moments that your brain kind of feeds off of. And it's because your brain is a self-entertaining machine. So when you're constantly filling it with external stimuli and getting no internal stimuli, you're basically kind of just reverting to a caged animal. You're reverting to being like a caged animal. There's no internal stimuli, so you look for external stimuli, and guess what? You're just in the corner chewing your leg, which isn't helping yourself or anyone around you. Please stop doom scrolling. There are several things that you can do instead of doom scrolling. There are several videos that can give you ideas of what to do instead of doom scrolling. When you feel that need to pick up your phone and start checking notifications, there are other things you can do. What I've started doing for myself personally, I've just left the phone. I've just put the phone down. And sometimes I'll just leave it in my room, or I'll just leave it in one corner and I don't even look at it. When I'm on my computer, I don't need my phone. Because, I mean, seriously, I already have my computer open. Why do I need my phone? I don't. I'm just bored. I need to fidget with something. So I have a fidget cube that I mess with when my hands need something to fiddle with, when I'm, like, watching a video or waiting for something to load, or just spending in the quiet moments in between. I'm just fiddling with my hands because that is internal stimuli. It seems like external stimuli because my hands are moving, but your hands are I don't know who said this, but it was said somewhere that I can't remember off the top of my head. Your hands are your secondary brain. What that means is what your hands do idly is the internal stimulation from your mind. So instead of picking up that phone and then just really getting your thumb game going on, try fidgeting with something else. Or, I can't really give a whole lot of advice on what to do as a side, because I'm a neurodivergent person, so I kind of constantly need to fidget with something. And oh my god, when I would get stuck on the doom scroll, I would doom scroll for an entire day. Literally, there's one time where granted I was sick, so I was just in bed. But instead of just, sleeping, or heaven forbid, turning on the lamp and reading a book, I just picked up my phone and doom scrolled, or just scrolled through shorts that entire day, and I felt more exhausted and more drained than I would have just from being sick. And that was kind of my breaking point where I was like, no, this has got to stop. It is not helping. It is the worst thing I can do for myself. And I'm saying I love you to myself by cutting that off. I guess that can be the next thing to write down. The first person you need to say I love you to is yourself. First person, that's an M. Person to, I'll just say to love is you. Because at the end of the day, you are all you've got, really. Yes, we do have each other, and you have family, and you have your loved ones, but sometimes they're not all the way around. The only person who is always there for you, who has never left you behind, who, despite everything you've been through, you are still together, is yourself. Now, that is not 100%, because then maybe there are some people with a, dissociative identity disorder, and that's just a slightly different situation, but, let's not get into that right now. That's just, you need to be there for you, because you are all you've got. So sometimes that means just being your own parent. That means, all right, enough screen time, put it away. You need to do your chores first before you have any fun electronic time. Or it's like, no, you need to do your homework now so you can play later. The more you get your work done now, the less you'll have to do later. That's the mentality I have adapted, but then you also do have to not child yourself. You do kind of have to baby yourself a little bit. Because then if you get too far into parent mode, then it's like, if the more I do now, the less I'll have to do later. And then when it comes to later, I'm so exhausted because I literally did everything. So temperance, balance. But that's what love is balance and respect. Yeah, love is respect. That's what real love is. When you respect a person, that means you value their insight, you value their life, you're more likely to listen to them, you want them to be happy and healthy because you respect that person. The rest follows. Because how can you say that you love someone when you don't even have any basic respect for them? It's impossible. It's literally impossible. Oh, but they're my child. Why should I have to respect them? I'm the adult. It's because they're your child. You should respect them. Not just as your child, but also as an individual who has separate thoughts, feelings, perspectives, their own inner universe, inside and out. And here's another thing I've learned on that regard, is the older I get, the more adults piss me off. Now, that might just be because I'm interacting with more adults as a fellow adult. I'm almost 30. More than what I did as a kid. But I used, when you're a kid, you're taught to, look up to the adults and to listen to them and respect them. But after a life, if they're just disrespecting you and not listening to you, well, not just not listening to you, but if there's no respect there, so there's no love, so then there's no reason for you to be wasting your time on them. You don't need to respect them. You can treat them as an equal, as a fellow human being with their own thoughts and feelings, but that doesn't mean you get to mistreat them. Just because you don't respect someone, that doesn't mean you have the obligation or the right to mistreat them. That is of a certain mentality that are words that I cannot say on YouTube. Even I will not cross that path. Ugh. God, that coffee's awful. Ugh. Oh well. You can have just one bad day. You're not going to turn into the Joker after one bad day. That is another thing the Joker got wrong. The Joker was wrong, people. It doesn't take one bad day to turn someone insane or whatnot. So if you're worried about snapping one day because, you know, oh, you were just having a bad day and then you snapped and then now you're like, you feel like you're a terrible person or everything is crashing down all around you. It's not just one bad day. You can just have a bad day. Let the bad day exist, but let it end when the next day arrives. That is hard to do. It is very hard to do. But at the end of the day, it's night. Go to bed. And I have officially almost run out of room on this sheet, so we're just gonna call it there. I know that wasn't exactly 28 things, but I did go off on several tangents. So, and each like point here had like 3 bits of other advice in there. So, I'm just gonna say that's good enough. Because at least it's something. I made it exist. It doesn't have to be good. Maybe later, like 2 years down the line when I turn 30, I'll not just remake this video, I'll revisit this video and then maybe make a true 30 things I learned in 30 years. And that video is going to be probably actually 2 hours long because of all the side tangents and like just listing 30 things by themselves with no explanation is probably going to take, that's like 10 minutes by themselves. So then if you got 30 things that are like statements or things that you have learned that require an in-depth conversation or explanation and or a story of how you learned this or something, that's again like another 30 minutes per thing. So then that wouldn't even be 2 hours because that would just be 4 of them. So whatever, who cares? I'll leave you with one last thing that I have learned, and it ties into every single one of these points that I have listed here. I am slowly learning of just being okay with who I am. You just need to be okay with who you are. Even if you are a person that is flawed, that needs to change, that probably has things that they need to work on, and it's going to be a long, hard, and arduous journey. That's not what I'm talking about. Being okay with who you are and loving yourself means you respect yourself and that you will allow the one you love to go on to bigger and better things. Even if that bigger and better thing is just a quiet, mediocre life. If that's what you want, if that's what true peace looks like to you, go for it, baby.